Welcome to CJ's Car Channel, and today I'm going to do an honest review of the BMW 1 Series. This is a 116D, it's an F20 series model, it's from 2013. They made this car from 2011 to around about 2015 before they released the newer model. But we'll start off with the honest review, as I said. So this is the basic car, as you can see. I'll show you a run around the car. The first noticeable feature is the iDrive system here. This tells you absolutely everything. So as you can see, you've got the radio, and good thing with this car being so new, it's got DAB radio and obviously 1,000,001 channels to choose from, which is great. It's fantastic. If you had the upgraded system, you'd have things like GPS. Well, GPS probably is the only one extra on it. You can do your telephones through here, so you can Bluetooth your phone. You can link your music from your phone to the stereo. It's got USB ports in the center console and aux, so you can do your aux in USB. On the upgraded ones as well, you can have video playback. I don't recommend driving while watching films, that's highly dangerous. You can pull your contacts through the iDrive system in the center here, by twirling knobs and select your contacts. Or you can use the steering column's controls to select your contacts on your phone book. So you can answer calls. It's even got the voice recognition, so you can actually say, call my neighbor, for example, if you have that sort of dirty sort of attachments to your neighbor. Anyway, moving forward, another cool feature I like about this car is inside the vehicle information. You can actually pull up the car's service record, vehicle status, and so forth. So you can check your car service history through the computer on the car. You can check your average MPG. It's even got owner's handbook. If you've somehow miraculously lost your handbook, but you should always keep it in the glove box anyway. And generally it's really cool. Moving forwards, another really smart feature with the iDrive system is you've got the Sport and Eco Pro buttons here. Now this is like a dynamic control. It changes the car's general feel and how fast it accelerates between each mode. So for example, if I stick it in Sport, the screen on the iDrive system changes to Sport. The idea behind this is it stiffens up the suspension, changes the engine response, so to make the car more lively. If I was to change it into Sports Plus, it's a little bit more, and then Plus turns off the traction control, which always makes it a bit more fun. But this being a 116D, so basically your entry model, it's not going to be pulling wheel spins or drifting around corners like the 135. But as a daily, it's very economical, very nice. So what I personally do is I leave it in comfort mode. There's no need to be in sport mode. I don't feel like it's any faster, but it is a bit more peppy, shall we say. If you want to challenge yourself and how eco-friendly you can be and save the foxes and the whales, you can stick it in what we got here is called Eco Plus or Eco Pro. And what it does is puts the car in its most economical friendly mode possible. It changes things like the air control settings on the fly, so all this will change while you're driving. And basically you also get a nice little gauge here on the dashboard to say how many miles you've saved over standard driving. I found out over my general 20 to 30 mile day I can save about 5 miles in Eco Pro Plus over standard comfort, which you can imagine over a period of a year, it's quite a bit of a saving. So moving forwards, we'll start the drive. So right now the car is in Eco Pro mode, so the most economical mode possible. It says I've saved obviously another 0.1 mile out of a gallon since I've been driving. As you're going along, as you can hear, and I'll be quiet during a brief moment, you'll hear the car is very quiet, which is generally good refinement in a car's engineering. So I'll just quiet now. As you can hear, there's not much road noise in this car. It's really quiet, really refined. The gearbox is really smooth. You can make some nice smooth gear changes. You know, it's quite notchy, but it's fluid, it's smooth, so it's great. So as I said, with this one we have the 116D. So what we have basically is a 2-litre diesel. Now it doesn't make much sense why they call it the 116, because in previous generations of BMW it would be a 1.6. But what they've done in this case is they've taken a 2-litre engine and they've detuned it. This engine is capable of 218 horsepower, but this one pumping out a whopping 116 horsepower. Save the foxes. Right, anyway, as you can see, it's got this twin, it clearly states the twin power turbo. So yes, a 2-litre engine with a turbo producing 116 horsepower. You don't feel the turbo lag, you don't feel the boost. This thing is very linear, very smooth, and very economical. This car, I've averaged about 52 miles a gallon, but on Eco Pro I could probably push that to 62. They claim you can get 70 odd miles a gallon. Beggars here believe, but you know, it's just how it goes. If you've achieved 72 miles to the gallon in one of these, let me know. So obviously this is the entry-level 116. They do have 118s, 120s, 125s, even the more performance-stricken 135s, 140s. Now I've driven a 235, and I'll say that car is an absolute monster. Now you imagine the same engine, but in a smaller car that weighs less, even less more. Oh, I can imagine the fun you'd have in that. So even though this car is only a 116, it is a sport model, and it's got some pretty smart sports features that actually make you feel like you're in a sports car. So let me show you. So we jump in the car. Now when I was talking about the drive earlier on, we've got these side bolsters here. Now they're adjusted by this hand control here, which basically what they do, if you move them forward, it pushes the side bolsters into you, like a bucket seat, holding you into the car. So it really gives you that sporty feel of like you're in a race car. That's what you want. Another thing I love about the BMWs, and I've had 3 BMWs before this, is they always give you that feel like you're in a cockpit. You know, the cockpit feel. The driver's the center of the car, and that's what you want. BMW always strive to say driving pleasure. Well, they always do very well with driving pleasure, and take my hat off to them. This is probably one of the most deciding factors for anyone wanting to own a car like this. So for starters, road tax. Now with the 116, you wouldn't believe it, but it's a lot less than you'd think. Now I've had 3 cars in the past, 2 petrols and a bigger diesel, and both of them, right, in general, cost me 240 to 260 a year on road tax. But this thing, being the newer, more eco-friendly, is a huge £30. Imagine that, all the beer you can spend that you've saved. Right. Moving forward, so the insurance. Unfortunately, insurance is probably fractionally more expensive than your older cars, mainly because of all the technology and advancements. If you're a younger driver, yeah, you might get penalized a bit as well. But if you're older like me, yes, I'm 30, I pay a huge, in a city environment, I pay a huge £450 a year, give or take. Now, obviously some people might be saying that's quite a lot, but when you live in a city, they're going to ramp you up because obviously there's that many more people driving around. If I was in a village, I'd be lucky maybe 350, maybe less still. But I was reading from a news article regards insurance companies, and they were stating that insurance prices are going up on more expensive newer cars because the technology behind them. So for example, in the days, if you had a little prang on the front bumper, it was just a front bumper and maybe a few lights. But now it's a front bumper, lights, sensors, and a whole host of other things. So as you imagine, insurance costs are going up because cars are generally more expensive to repair, which is probably one of the downsides about this car. If anything major goes, it's going to be quite expensive. But brakes, one of the most important things in the car. Brakes are actually surprisingly quite cheap. I had a quick look, and the brakes are no more expensive on this car than they are for any other car I've owned. I can get a set of front discs and pads for this car for about £80. You know, they're not sports brakes, but they're standard what this car has. So, to be honest, you can't argue with that. If you're a person that likes to fix cars yourself, perfect. Some more the usual mod cons you get in the BMW 1 Series is obviously you have, as you can see, air conditioning. This comes as standard in all models. Really nice display. You got your parking sensor here. A lot of people probably don't realise what that is, but if you're reverse parking, you come up to something and it starts beeping, if you press that, you turn it off, if you really want to. That one turns off the traction control if you're feeling brave, but as I said, in a 116 you're not going to be braking traction in a hurry. My personal experience with this air conditioning unit anyway, my personal experience is it actually gets cold quite fast and it gets hot pretty fast too, which is what you want, especially in winter or summer. If this one in particular has got the start and stop technology, so if you come up to the traffic light, you release your clutch, put it in neutral, it'll switch off automatically. Now to stop that turning off, you got this button here that says A off, which basically means automatic ignition, turn off. You can switch it off so it doesn't switch off. You can just leave the engine running if you want to kill a few more foxes. Right. As you can see, this is a keyless car because it's got the start stop button, and this is a fantastic key. Now, one thing I find out with these is, initially when I first got the car, I'd come in and I'd be like, what am I supposed to do with this? So just throw it in the cup holder, It's like one of those things, like, it's almost a pointless necessity now. It's a bit like those cards you get with Bentley or Rolls Royce. You might as well just leave it in your wallet, because as soon as you sit down, the car starts. Fantastic. There is no ignition on the side, so even if your key does die, you can't just start the car with a little turn, but you do have a spare. Another thing that I thought was pretty cool is when I went into BMW last week, you can actually read the service history off the key. You can literally just go up to the computer, slam it down, and it goes, oh, there's your service history. So all your service history about the car is on this little thing, which is pretty smart. Makes planning your next service a breeze, because people don't have to go into your car, code it, all this nonsense. They don't have to fill out a paper book to say how many miles you did last time since your last service. It's just on the computer, away you go. That's the future. So the pros and cons of the car. So one of the major cons of this car, unfortunately, is rear windscreen. It's very small, unfortunately. It does make it a bit more difficult and challenging to reverse park, but fortunately you do have reverse parking sensors, and if you've driven vans in the past, you use your mirrors anyway. Another con: expensive. Now, unfortunately, because it's a BMW, you're paying for the badge. Like anything, German engineering is generally more expensive, but don't put that off you, because it's definitely worthwhile. It is the ultimate driving machine after all, and you will not be sorry for purchasing a car like this. Con number 3: less features than the competition. Yeah, so unfortunately, companies like Ford, Kia, Suzuki, and mostly the Japanese brands, I would say, have obviously they're a lower price range, and they generally have more features than this, unfortunately, which obviously puts this as a con. Now, if you did purchase this car with all the features, you would say the car has equally as many features, but I'm saying it's a con because as a standard model, it has less features than their standard models. So pros: sporty looking car. So if you're in a midlife crisis like I am, 30, needing a sports car, sporty looking is perfect. So yeah. Next one, in this day and age, another pro would be very economical. So as I said, this car does 52 to 62 miles a gallon for me. I think BMW state this thing can do 72. Beggars to believe. I can't achieve that, but that's maybe because I got a heavy right foot. Last but not least, another good pro for this car, which is probably the most important thing for anyone who is interested in a small family car, would be that it's got a 5-star safety rating. So obviously, fine well, your family, your friends will be perfectly safe. So that's 3 pros and 3 cons from me. And to conclude, I would just like to say, if you're interested in buying a 1 Series BMW, and it's going to be, say, your first rear-wheel drive sports car, your first rear-wheel drive car, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. As I said, I've driven 2 or 3 BMWs in the past, and a few front-wheel drives as well, and There's nothing like a rear wheel drive. Your front, you don't get any of that front wheel steering torque where the wheel wants to turn when you put the power down, and it handles like a dream. This car is perfect for the city. The steering's very light. You know, you can dip and dive out of traffic easy. It's not like a big leisurely cruiser where the steering's heavy. The clutch is light. The brakes are perfectly laden. You know, there's not too hard, not too soft. In general, this car is like your perfect city car, perfect family car. So for me personally, I recommend this car to anyone if you're looking for a small car. If you're thinking about getting a Ford Focus, nah, stop right there. Think about your midlife crisis and your kids. Your kids would want you to come to school in one of these, not in a Ford. So do yourself a favor, get the BMW. Thanks for watching, and if you care to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll tell you more about future projects that are coming up. Thank you.